Hello, and welcome to Health Fitness Redefined. I'm your host, Anthony Amen. Joining me today as we take a dive into the world of health and fitness, where we're going to overcome adversity to pick back versus fiction and see health and fitness in a whole new light. I'm sure you guys, this is the last topic you're thinking about this time of year. All you are thinking about is getting that Christmas shopping done because Christmas is right around the corner, out of this world. So you're like, I don't care what I'm eating. I'm putting it in my body and I'll deal with it later. But little did you know, as things we've talked about time and time again, gut health is one of the most important things to think about. Yes, how your body digests things and how it gets processed is super important. And more research has showed that gut health is actually more directly linked to weight loss than pretty much anything else. So without further ado, let's welcome to the show, Josh. Josh, it's an absolute pleasure to have you today.
Anthony, it's a pleasure to be here, man. Thank you so much for bringing me in.
A lot of people see gut health and they're like, I ain't listening to that. But those that have made it this far and are actually listening to this episode will know that I love gut health. In the process of writing a little mini book. Hope to be done with that by the end of next year. And it's one of the 10 topics I picked because digestive health is everything.
I think that's an understatement, man. Digestive health, I even argue that our own gut bacteria are more important than our DNA, and I can back that up. And so when you say it's important, I mean, it is everything.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, people are getting more interested in it because one of our top 5 most downloaded episodes was what we did on microbes. So just people are starting to get in the field. But I just had the simple question: what made you start getting into learning about gut health in the first place?
Well, it's interesting. It was actually a bit of we'll say a happy accident. So I used to be a paramedic, and that was my first career. And I moved across the country from Newfoundland all the way over here to Alberta. And my initial intent was just to get another job as a paramedic that just paid more money. And it didn't work out. It was really difficult to change my licenses. And so I ended up picking up a job as a personal trainer. I've been in the industry for a few years anyways. And so when I started, I got very lucky. My career had some cool foundations. A woman named Lynn came to see me, 57 years old. She was on 17 pills and insulin for breakfast, 9 pills and insulin for dinner time. She had high blood pressure, slept with a CPAP machine. She was on the disability list at work, like you name it. And she had all these things going on. And we started working together, got into the basics of nutrition and fitness and all the things. By age 59, I entered her into her first powerlifting competition in the raw powerlifting division, and she broke a world record. And she kept breaking world records until age 59 or 61 or 62 rather, from 59 onward. And so it was really amazing to see the healing powers of the body and what it was actually capable of. And so it just really drove me to look a bit deeper. And I started working with people dealing with skin issues or asthma, anxiety, depression, insomnia, all kinds of stuff. And every single time we'd work on their basics and fundamentals of nutrition, one of the things that was improving was their gut, as well as these other conditions. I thought, well, there's got to be a connection here. Turns out that's been long established for 30 years. I thought I discovered this. I'm in my early 20s. And I was like, wow, I'm breaking medicine. That's not what it was. But I ended up going back to school, became a nutritionist, and the further I dove into gut health, the more severe cases came to see me. At first it was just IBS, and then it eventually turned into inflammatory bowel disease, which is Crohn's and colitis, and that's where I specialize now, is those dealing with some of the worst gut disease on earth. And so I really have seen the full spectrum.
Yeah, that's definitely a shitty situation.
No
Horrible
pun
choice.
intended, hey.
The first thing that crossed my mind, which just blows my mind. People complain about going to the gym like where I am in New York. It's like, oh, it's too cold. This guy's in Calgary, and the first thing I'm thinking about is this poor woman, Lynn, is showing up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. It's negative 35 degrees outside, and she's still hitting the gym. Like,
Oh, she
all the
was.
excuses living south of New York is just out, man.
That's it. It was amazing. 'Cause, I mean, it did come to a point where, we were working out after work for the first couple of years, and I worked with her for 5, 6 years. And, you know, she was after work for quite a while. And then her work schedule changed. She started getting at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock or 1 o'clock. And there was just nothing in the world she'd rather do. It's like when she saw what her body was capable of, when she saw she was able to, 57 years old, 5 feet tall, 160 pounds, pulling 315 off the floor. Like, it's just, you don't see that very often. And it's amazing when she saw how capable she was, she got addicted. And I think that's just really a tell for human beings. So many of us underestimate our potential and our health potential, not only in the fitness personal training space, but just how much our gut health holds us back from everything. Your joints, your activity, your energy levels, focus, memory, concentration, motivation, weight gain, weight loss. It all comes back to the gut. It's a major player. And if we can address that, every aspect of our lives get better.
Yeah, and my audience is going to get mad at me, but it's okay. So you think back to what I harp on time and time and time again. It's the first place to go with gut health, not sleep quality. And they're like, oh, Anthony, stop talking about sleep. It's like, no, you don't understand. Sleep is super important. And then we can relate this to gut health. It's your sleep quality depending on how healthy your gut is. So I know you have things to add to that. So I'm going to let you
Mhm.
talk about it.
Yeah, well, I tell people it's all about cumulative stressors, right? The more accumulation we have of stress, of anxiety, of stress chemicals and hormones, the worse your gut's going to get. Your body basically operates in two main states. It's either in rest digest or it's in fight or flight. It can't do both adequately. It has to be one or the other to, again, a degree of severity. And so if we come in, we're not sleeping well, guess what's elevated? All your cortisols, all your stress hormones, all your adrenal function and activity, which puts you in this fight flight state. Therefore, you are not rest digest, which means you're not producing stomach acid. Number one leading cause for acid reflux is low stomach acid. You're not going to be producing digestive enzymes. You're not breaking down and absorbing. Therefore, you're not getting nutrients in. And now you're throwing off everything because you quite literally are what you digest, break down, and absorb. And if you're not sleeping, you're not digesting, you're not breaking down, and you're not absorbing.
Yeah. And can I even add to that where it's what time of night are you eating to let your body
Mhm.
digest? What are you like? Is your body fighting with? For example, here's a great example. I'm severely lactose intolerant. And once in a while, I just smell pizza and it's like I had this fight in my head. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Is it
Mm.
worth it? And then once in a while, I cave in because we're all human. So I'll have a nice slice of pizza. And then that night, horrible sleep. I'm asleep, but I wake up. I'm not gonna get bags on the eyes. And it's just like this was last night, which is why it's a great example. But I get this incredible bags. So my body's spending the entire night fighting to break down that cheese that it just didn't want in my body in the first place. And then
Mhm.
you just feel a little lethargic the next day. It's like all of that just from that simple choice of should I have that slice of pizza or not.
It's amazing. I often run into the same thing because I've got candida right now. I'm trying to get out, came from a huge bout of stressors and all kinds of stuff. And so I've got this candida, which is effectively a fungus. And I'm not a carbs, starches, any of that stuff. Now, I was at my in-laws a couple of weeks back. I didn't even think about it. They were just, they had soup and they, had some fresh French bread she had just made. And I was like, oh, thanks so much, Marina. Glad you made this bread. And I grabbed a piece and it got halfway through and I'm like, this is full of gluten and starch. My candida is going to hate it. And for 4 days, I was stupid. I mean, like my brain wasn't functioning. I couldn't recall information. I couldn't process things properly. I was a little irritable, couldn't focus at work. And that's what happens because your gut, when it has imbalances, if you're bloated, if you have any kind of issue, if there's constipation, diarrhea, acid reflux, even if you have asymptomatic gut issues, I mean, you don't know you have gut issues or irregular bowel movements, eating gluten is bad for everyone, first of all. Unquestionably, the science is clear. No one should eat gluten ever. Second to that, your bacteria, when there's imbalances, produce these we'll call endotoxins, and there's toxic byproduct made by bacteria that get into your bloodstream, they get into your brain, they get all around the body. People who have like arthritis could be coming from your gut. Asthma could be coming from your gut. Probably as skin issues, look at the gut. And so it's all connected to everything. And what we eat has a direct relationship to that.
Yeah, I definitely believe in what we eat has a direct relation to who we are, how we feel, on all of the above. So let's kind of people say, all right, I get it, gut health, whatever. So what is step one in order to kind of figure out what you should be eating?
Mm. Number one, I think the most important thing we can do is understand. And I know we say gut health, gut health. Like I think people need to understand we can say gut health is important, but my thing is, why is it important? And once we have the education in my experience as an educator, excuse me, as a lecturer, when we have the understanding of why it is so important, we have a bloody reverence for our guts. Only then can we really take the steps. So, if I could, Anthony, I want to back this up a little bit and throw you some statistics about the gut, why it's so important. And then we'll talk
Sure.
about what we can do for our guts. Number one, I often say our gut bacteria are more important than our very own DNA, which is a bold, bloody statement. But look at this. You have On average, the average person has about 100 trillion different bacteria in their gut. It makes up 3 to 5 pounds of just bacteria in your gut, which means the average person's body weight, 2 to 3% of it is just bacteria, which is massive. They outnumber our body's own cells by 10 to 1. Inside those bacteria, we have viruses that would number them 35 to 1. And then there's fungi and yeast and all kinds of stuff that live inside of our bodies. And so, even if we look at the human genome, right, your genes, you have 23,000 different genes that are part of making you you. Your gut bacteria have 3 million different genes, and they interact with every aspect of our body. So when I say like what we eat in our gut is important, I mean they are literally more abundant, 10 times more abundant than your own body cells. They are everything and everywhere. You have bacteria on your skin, in your eyes. We have them rectally. You have them all over your eyebrows, orally, in the nose. Women will have their own microbiome vaginally. Even a baby being born has its own microbiome in the placenta. So it is everywhere. And so that's number one. We have to understand that it's not just, oh, gut health is important. It is literally more important and more abundant than your own DNA. And so people have compared models and said, well, if you took an entire human being and took all the bacteria and all the DNA and compressed it, the DNA would fit in your big toe. The rest of your body is bacteria. And so it's everything. And so what we need to do when we're talking about taking care of it is number one, inflammation is the worst. Your gut bacteria love a nice, steady environment, but bad bacteria, the unhealthy stuff that produces toxins that circulate around your body, right? Your small intestine, it's only one cell between that and your bloodstream. Your large intestine's only two. And so everything that comes in your gut, it's literally one cell thick before it gets into the super highway of your lymphatic and your bloodstream and circulates around the body. And so what we eat, what we break down, digest, and absorb is everything. So if we're eating aspartame, if we're eating sugars, we're eating fried foods, these things that are inflammatory do inflame the body. People go, well, no, gluten doesn't bother me. It does. Unquestionably. You may not have symptoms right away, but it affects everyone every single time. And the science is very clear. And the reason that happens, between the stomach and the small intestine, we have a little something called TLR4 receptors. These are your toll-like receptor number 4. And what they do is they stand guard. And if you consume gluten, your body actually identifies gluten, like the microscopic level of it. It looks like a pathogenic bacteria. And so it opens the floodgates and creates leaks in the gut. Now, leaky gut's a defense mechanism. It says, yeah, flush water in to flush this thing out, right? It's like hosing down a driveway. Everyone who eats gluten will get leaky gut. Now, if you develop gut symptoms, that's one thing. Other people might develop irritability or cognition issues, or I get acne or something happens, but everybody gets leaky gut because these glutens are toxic and people want to defend them. Well, gluten's also addictive. There's something in them called gluteomorphins, which sit in the morphine receptors of your body. Is literally addictive and sits in the same place as morphine. And it's really hard for us to let go. And in the inflammatory bowel disease space, I hear people all the time, oh, gluten's fine for me. I eat gluten. My doctor says I don't have gluten issues. I'm telling you, you do. Does not matter what you think, what your doctor says, you do have a gluten issue. And that's a hard one to swallow.
Yeah, it's definitely different. I'm not totally versed in gluten breakdown and everything like that, so I'm just gonna hold my opinion to myself. But
no, please. I mean, this is an educational podcast. That's what it's about.
Yeah, I mean, just feel like to be frank, like I don't know if I believe it, but yet again, I don't know the science enough to back it up. I can speak more into the lactose environment because I'm being myself very severely bad. I can tell you that only 4% of people actually don't have a lactose intolerance issue. And that stems from a lot of issues. If your DNA, which we talked about, like how effective DNA and gut microbiome, you produce lactase only if I believe it's like Northern European ancestries. So you're talking Ireland, Scotland, like those areas where they've had cows for thousands of years have a different gut microbiome than those that were from everywhere else. Like I'm mostly
100%.
Sicilian. So there was no cows. There was no cow's milk. It just didn't exist.
Right.
So we were never exposed to it and never was able to build that up in our systems. That's why like cheese like really bothers me and my whole family. It plays more than just, and I try explaining this to people. It's not, oh, I just have a bathroom bout. It's literally like what you're saying. Like it causes brain fog for me. It like fucks up my sleep. it really gets involved in day-to-day activities where it takes time to get over. And I used to like really eat a lot of it when I was younger because I didn't care. And then as I started cutting it out of my life, my tolerance for it like dropped. So now even trace amounts like really get me. And
Mhm.
just all over again, just back to all these issues. Just stinks because cheese is so good. And you would think that like Italians who are all lactose intolerant, by the way, say, why do they put freaking milk in everything?
Mhm. It's
Just makes no
everywhere.
sense.
Well, it's interesting because that's a great example. I'm glad you brought that up because lactose bothers you because it immediately causes inflammation and you immediately get bloated or get loose stool or something will happen. And you go, oh, yeah, this really messed me up. So we can define it because we can feel it. But it's a spectrum. Think of it like a glass of water, right? Someone who's got a lot of inflammation, uses a lot of toxins in their home, who's high stress, who eats pretty medium to poor diet, and then they eat gluten, that's a contributor. But if somebody's got an empty glass where they're extraordinarily healthy, no autoimmune issues, no health issues, no digestive issues, no cognitive issues, like they are just born from horse stock, will never get sick, eating gluten, they have a tolerance for it. But that's all it is. It's a spectrum of tolerance. So some people, it fills the cup, overflows, they have symptoms. Other people, they can tolerate it on an ongoing basis. But a lot of people can't, or they don't recognize that it's a problem for them. But for everyone, it does cause a problem. It doesn't throw everyone off a cliff, but every single time it does contribute to that glass overflowing, if that makes more sense.
Yeah, I mean it does, and I really think everything's heavily linked back to where you're from and where's your ethnicity from. And
Mm.
that's it. Just plays a role with how we look as humans, how we function, how we tolerate vitamin D absorption is dependent on where we're from ancestry wise. Like there's so many things that we can just look back and be like, hey, my ancestors thousands of years ago had access to this, meaning this stuff doesn't bother me. Meanwhile, all these foods that we get from a grocery store, like we've never had, so that really like screws me up putting that inside of my body kind of deal. I do need to hop into just real quick, guys. If you haven't heard already, Keith and I are starting a brand new company called F Squared Consulting. It is fitness and financial freedom. This company is a brainchild of ours because I looked into it and we had a whole episode about it last week where it was, hey, fitness and finances go hand in hand. And as an entrepreneur, the last thing you're thinking about is your own personal health and your own personal finances because you are obsessing over your business time and time again. So we come in and we say, hey, look, listen, you need to put these things in order to reduce your stress, which is going to help with your gut microbe issues and also just help you not have to worry about it so you can spend more time focusing on your business. We're going to teach you everything we know. We're going to meet with you every single week. It is all done virtually. And it is something that I really, truly believe everyone needs in their lives. There is absolutely no commitment to anything we do. And we're offering all podcast listeners 10% off going forward. So please go check us out, guys. Fitbodies, fatwallets.com. That is Fitbodies, fatwallets.com. It is F Squared Consulting. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. So I just want to kind of use that as a transition for us. Talk about the effect of stress on our gut. So I think that's everyone knows that.
Mhm.
And especially because we're in that holiday season right now. So what can you do? Are there any actionable steps we can take to help our gut microbiome directly related to stress?
Yeah, stress is really interesting because, like you said, it wreaks havoc. It activates stress hormones, which cause inflammation, which can wear down the gut lining, leading to inflammation and leaky gut. It inhibits digestive processes, stomach acid, digestive enzymes, that even basis of peristalsis, which is just moving food through the system. So all these things become inhibited under stress. The best thing I can recommend is just to focus on food when it's time to eat. So many of us eat on the go. We do what's called dashboard dining. We're just eating in the car, on the run. We're chewing, we're like swallowing like pelicans, like one gulp, and we're not really chewing our food. And that process of just taking a minute, take 5 breaths, just nice and slow in and out, right before you start eating, can really just turn the clock back on the nervous system and get you to relax a little bit. And it won't completely negate all the stressors you have, but learning to sit and eat when it's time to eat. Focus on the food, not what you're doing. So many of us, food is either A, nothing but enjoyment, or B, nothing but a necessity. But for very few of us, do we look at food as an opportunity to nourish ourselves. And we can truly do that. Everything else gets better, much like sleep. right? Everything else can improve if we just focus on sleep. Well, if we just focus on food when it's time to focus on food, if we can sit and have conversations and be social, that's actually been shown to improve digestibility. But when we're eating on the go, you're shuttling 5 kids into the van to go to soccer practice. Like, just wait till you get there, sit in the chair, take 5 breaths on the bleachers, and then start eating. And that is a much better opportunity for you. And lots of people who still have issues, they still find themselves stressed out, try a digestive enzyme, right? You can get them for pretty cheap. They're not expensive, something very basic. You can get digestive enzymes with 40 different things in them. I recommend very basic protease, amylase, lipase, just very basic. Some might have some betaine, HCl, or stomach acid in there. And that alone can help improve digestion for people who struggle to sit. I'm not saying it's a replacement for sitting and breathing. I'm saying do both. But even if the sitting and breathing isn't enough, just taking a digestive enzyme can really help what you're absorbing, helping your energy, decreasing inflammation, helping with your skin, helping with your sleep, all those things. That's probably the most basic thing we can do.
Yeah, nice and easy, especially like my vision with that, by the way, is kids screaming in the car. It's
Yep.
dark out because it's the middle of winter, and you're just sitting there with like fast food, shoving it down your throat as you have 10 shopping bags in your back. And all
Mhm.
you're thinking about is how to get these darn kids out of the car, get the gifts inside without them seeing it, and just running around the hair everywhere. But not that I know what hair is really, but yeah. just the vision of everyone right now going on. So yeah, I really think stress is super important. Definitely want to make sure you're not eating on the go. That's a huge tip because you're going to make bad choices even on top of that. How many of us are stopping for like a healthy salad and lean meats on the
Yeah.
go?
I mean, even at that, if you stop at like Wendy's or McDonald's, one of these places, grab a salad, heavily covered in pesticides. The dressing is full of sugar. Whatever you get, the grilled chicken or whatever on top of it, cooked in seed oils, highly inflammatory. Most of the chicken's soy and isolates and all kinds of junk based anyway. It's not real meat. In fact, there was even a class action lawsuit against Subway for the tuna melts because the tuna melt did not contain any tuna
Doesn't that
whatsoever.
blow your mind?
0% tuna. Mind blowing how it's legal. And so, we have to be also aware of our food and take responsibility for it and understand that just because the label says, farm fresh, it's not farm fresh. I haven't fact checked this one, but I heard years back when McDonald's said 100% beef, it was actually like a company they named called 100% beef. But if someone has information, check on that and let me know.
Yeah,
That
I
was just
want to know that too because I've heard the same thing, but I haven't ever fact checked it.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I see, I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, the average McDonald's hamburger has something like DNA from like 1,000 different cows. And even that fast food, right? A lot of it, even if you're getting quote healthy fast food, it's not. It's all trash because they have to treat it in such a way to make it taste the same in New York or Calgary or in the UK. It has to taste the same. And so there's no way they can do that using ingredients from different locations. And so everything's mixed and mashed, and it's this hodgepodge full of chemicals. In fact, there was a video of a guy from the UK. He was a scientist who remade the McDonald's Big Mac and used like 50 some odd chemicals. Most were highly toxic, known to cause irritation or cancer or other things that these ingredients listed. I mean, it looked like Breaking Bad on this guy's table. And he used these chemicals to remake the Big Mac, the cheese, the bun, all that stuff. And it's horrific when you see it broken down to its finer parts. It's like the
I mean,
IKEA
you
of
ever just see
hamburgers.
the old videos? What was the movie? Super Size Me? Where they put
Oh,
a burger out for like 80 days and it never broke down.
it looked the exact same.
That's disgusting.
Right?
Like meat, like you take a fresh burger, right? You put it out a day, it starts smelling.
Yeah. I can guarantee you, if your food does not break down on the shelf, it is not breaking down in your gut.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah. There's one exception, which is like ferments, but it's fermented, and once you open it, it then starts to break down, right? Even like a jar of sauerkraut. What's it, a couple of weeks you've got after it's been opened? So anything exposed to open air and left to its natural devices to nature should break down. If it does not, dude, it's plastic.
I love that. Let's talk about some more like things. We talked about a lot about things you can't have. Let's talk about things you can have. Let's say
Mm.
like what are ways to increase your gut microbiome without taking obviously like probiotics and things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of controversy around diet types. A lot of people will recommend, well, you need fiber because it feeds your gut bacteria. Others advocate for the carnivore animal based diets. Personally, I tend to lean more animal based, but I don't stray away from fruits and basics. But I also don't eat a ton of vegetables. And it's really interesting because I think everyone's going to be a bit different. And this is where intuition comes in, or testing, right? If you can get a GI map, so like a stool test to check, the DNA analysis of your gut microbes and see where they are and what balance and all that. If you can do that, you can understand if I have a lot of overgrowth, you should be eating low fiber, because that fiber, your bacteria eat them and the dominant ones eat first. If you have overgrowth, they will eat and they will produce byproducts, because you eat, you poop. Your bacteria eats and it poops. So what is it pooping? Good things or bad things? And if you're overgrown, you're getting more bad things. So I recommend low fiber. In those cases where someone has, really clean microbiome, you could tolerate a lot more of it. But then you have the argument, like, human beings made to be carnivores, right? The alimentary canal and comparative anatomy, we look more carnivore based. Dietarily speaking, we can look at the Inuit, we can look at thousands and thousands of years ago, people eat more animal based. And so the argument goes, well, you need fiber because you can't break it down. And therefore, it's good for your gut because your microbes eat it. On the other hand, they say don't eat red meat because you can't break it down, so you shouldn't eat it. You can't have it both ways. So which one is it? And I've noticed in myself and my clients dealing with the gut space, the more animal based we go, the better people perform. Regardless of what the science and the data and the studies say, there's enough to push for both. Right. And that's the problem with science, is it's always ongoing. And people will say, no, vegan's best. I will never in my life advocate for a vegan diet for anyone ever.
I think it's one of the worst diets in the world. What did I say?
Unquestionably.
National
Yeah, there's no data unless it's cherry picked from people who say, yeah, vegan's good. You get these vegan bodybuilders, half of them are on gear anyway. And so
I will say this, and this is, I think you will 100% agree with me on this. If you have to supplement to
yes.
maintain a diet, it is not healthy.
Yes. And if you have to eat 2 Brazil nuts and 1 leaf of this and 3 ounces of that, how is that sustainable? Nobody in the history of ever could have eaten that way. And so to say we have these problems, and here's my other qualm. More plant-based diets are consumed amongst the affluent, financially, socially speaking. So we'll say the wealthy, upper middle class consume more plant-based diets. On the other hand, digestive diseases like Crohn's and ulcerative colitis have often been called the rich white lady's disease, because it's among mostly more women than men. I think it's like 60-40 split, give or take, but among the higher upper middle class who consume what? More plants. And so there's a lot of data saying it's bad. Now, is it the pesticides? Is it the plants themselves? Who knows? But on the other hand, when eating an animal-based diet, those animals filter those things out. It's the most nutrient dense, the most bioavailable. And it's interesting because conventional medicine, or any conventional data, will say, well, your microbes need fiber. On the other hand, I eat steak 3-4 times a day, and I've never been healthier. My gut's never been better, coming from a history of having gut issues. My energy, my skin, my moods, my strength, I've never been better. My ADHD, never been better than consuming meat and fat on an ongoing basis with the occasional fruit or vegetable.
I mean, I'm going to go back to the point I made way earlier. What did your ancestors and your specific genes used to eat?
Yes.
That's case in point there.
And everybody's ancestors ate meat, though, and that's the thing.
Like before they used to go hunt, and you got to think about it. There was no like food prepping, right? No. Or food prepping was a bare minimum. It was kill an animal, bring it back, and you just ate that for the meal. And then throughout the day, you snacked on fruits.
If you had them available, sure.
If you had them available, it was more fruits than it was veggies, though.
Absolutely.
Because I read a crazy survival book, and I recommend you guys look into this. Don't quote me on the exact percentages, but the point is to show you the extreme. If you're stuck out in the wilderness, right, and there's nothing around you, 2% of animals to us are deadly. Like if we ate them, we would die.
Like a pufferfish, yeah.
Correct. 98% are good. The exact opposite is true for plants. 98% of plants are poisonous to us. 2% are good. So if you're stuck in the middle of nowhere and you know nothing about survival, and it's like, what do I eat? I'm starving. You're better off eating insects and animals, because your odds are way higher of surviving than you are eating a plant. And there's a whole like breakdown of how to see if a plant's poisonous or not. And it takes, I think they said it takes on average like 10 days for us to really figure out if something's safe to eat, because it's like first touch it and then give it a day. Then put on your lips and give it a day. Put it in your mouth and spit it out and give it a day. than in just a small little tiny amount and then give it a day. So like it adds up and you're starving.
Yeah, 10 days is a hard fast, man. The most I've ever made is 4. And 100%, even those plants, the animals that eat them intuitively know they can or cannot eat them. They're fine and they
Minus my
filter.
dog, by the way.
Yeah, dogs are a different breed of stupid. I have a dachshund, I get it. And it's interesting because all those toxins, the animals filter them out, and then you eat the animal. Unquestionably, an animal-based diet, we've since the beginning of time, before the agricultural revolution, before farming, we always ate animals, and that's how it should be.
Yeah, and I'm gonna even just add one to it. If you're worried about things because you have like high cholesterol in your family and stuff like that, just note high cholesterol does not increase. Dietary cholesterol does not increase your cholesterol, period. But high levels of trans fat and saturated fat can. So eating leaner meats, still have meats, but have more of a leaner side of it,
Yeah.
aka
On the
bison,
other hand,
chicken, turkey, elk. There's
yeah,
a
and
lot
but
out
if you
there.
and if you've got, like, gut issues or liver issues because of the junk you consumed before, because of an over vegetable consumption, because of fast food, fried foods, now you're not gonna be able to break that stuff down. Like cholesterol, every cell in your body is made of cholesterol. Your brain is made of cholesterol, your cells, your nerves, it's all cholesterol. And so, to say avoid cholesterol or put someone on statins is asinine. I don't know. Doctors using statins, the science just isn't there, and it's one of the leading causes of Alzheimer's next to other issues. But we look at this, it's a matter of what we break down and absorb. And if you're not breaking down and utilizing cholesterol properly, that's an issue with your gut and your liver. You have to go back and fix that up because it's been destroyed by the other way you've been eating, which is low cholesterol, low fat, and low everything else.
Yeah, I need to get to one more point. I know I told you half an hour, but I want you to talk about this because I think out of everything, this is one of the most important things.
Mm-hmm.
Sugar alcohols, fake sugars, aspartame, whatever, I can't pronounce names, xylitol, all those freaking fake sugars. Let's talk about that and its effect on your gut, because I can tell you every single time I get gut inflammation or my wife gets gut inflammation, I read a label that has some kind of sugar alcohol in it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always the answer.
Yeah. So sugar alcohol is anything that basically ending in OL, sorbitol, xylitol, any all, right? Now, those are pros and cons. I look at xylitol, it can be used as like a biofilm buster. So bacteria produce biofilms. It's one, it allows them to move around and travel and breed and multiply. On the other hand, it's a protective layer. And so xylitol can be used to break those down. On the other hand, the sugar alcohols, they're artificial, they're refined. The human body's not made to break it down. Look at all these modern diseases we have, right? We've had more diabetes and heart disease and Alzheimer's and all kinds of things in the last 80 years since the introduction of sugar alcohols, artificial sweeteners, fast food, fried foods, all these things into our diet since the 1950s. And that's when we see these diseases spike. You can directly correlate and say, here's all these additives we had in our food, and here are these diseases. Both of them climb simultaneously. It's almost a 1-to-1 ratio. And so we know they're bad for us. And I get arguments all the time. People say, well, there's no study saying it's bad. It's just correlation. I'm like, yes, absolutely. But this is where we have to look. Western medicine has trained us to be so black and white. Well, if there's no study, it's innocent until proven guilty. Did you know that there are over 5,000 new chemicals added to your food, your water, your products every single year? And they make a list called GCS, generally considered safe, which means innocent until proven guilty. Well, all these sicknesses and diseases, autism used to be something like 1 in 10,000, 1 in 30,000. And they're estimating by 2030, it's going to be 1 in 3, which is staggering. And right now it's like 1 in 30. And so we're seeing the decline of the human civilization and human health and human cognition based on the correlation, which some people think is not strong enough data for all these additives, these sugar alcohols, these inflammatory foods, these chemicals. It's directly correlated. And so to say because we can't prove it, that's nonsense. And that's something that I really think the Western world needs to change. This innocent till proven guilty when it comes to our food and our chemicals. We know unquestionably our water is toxic. We know unquestionably our food is toxic. We know unquestionably our air is bloody toxic. And so everything that's being added, everything man-made, is bad for you. Most of the vegetables we eat are man-made. Most of these didn't exist. They're all GMO or modified, or they're hybrid strains of something that never existed hundreds of years ago. And so this is why if we go back to nature, we will get better, but we're straying further and further away from it than ever before. And that, I believe, is what's killing people. Whether you can prove it in a double-blind randomized control trial or not, the correlation data is so strong it can't be ignored.
Yeah, I mean, this is like that double-edged, like you were saying, right? You're right. Autism the rates are skyrocketing. It's unfathomable. It's someone who like works with that population a lot. They are saying it's going to be 1 in 3. What's causing it? No, I don't know. You can pinpoint one single thing, but to your point, there is something.
Yeah,
right?
I can name 100 things that I suspect. I mean, look at digestive disease, right? Inflammatory bowel disease. Back in 1990, right? It was about 1.5, upwards of 3 million people worldwide who had these issues. Worldwide, of the whole, 6 billion at the time, okay? 1.5 to 3 million cases. Now, in 2020, it's north of 7 million. And they say, well, it's idiopathic, meaning no known cause. They say, we don't know what's causing it. They say it might be just genetic. It might be environmental. Well, out of those 7 million cases, 3.5 to 4 million are in the United States alone. And the USA is less than 5% of the global population, but has 50% of the bowel disease on planet Earth. And you tell me there's no known cause? Well, you better figure it out pretty freaking fast, you know?
I couldn't agree more. Really, like it's mind-boggling the amount of you look at us compared to third world countries, and I'm gonna use that in quotations, like they're healthier.
They are. They are.
That's more people are dying from obesity than are dying from starvation. Fact.
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica. 100%
Yes.
accurate. It's wild.
I remember back, just because I saw the documentary on it, but oh my God, why am I blank on the guy's name? The famous singer. They had a whole African concert in the 1980s.
No idea. I have my head in the sand. I live under a rock.
It's okay. It was like a Feed Africa concert they ran, and they
Oh,
had
sure.
millions of people donating money to help give food and supplies. Think about how big that was, right? And people that can relate and remember that time in history, like, yeah, like there was a lot of money raised because that's a huge issue. That was 1980s. We're in 2023. 43 years later, more people die of obesity than are dying of starvation.
Well, we also have a criminal organization running the entire government, right? I mean, realistically speaking, that's a rabbit hole to get down another time for another type of podcast. But I mean, if you guys just want to look up the Kissinger report, 1970 something, Henry Kissinger came out and said that we need to control the population of Africa because America needs the resources. We can control them through vaccination, through healthcare, through sterilization, because we want their resources. And so when we look at this, like we can see there's so much working against us as humanity. And that's I mean, Africa is one of the most abundant, nutrient-rich continents on Earth. It should be bloody Wakanda, but it's been absolutely just ransacked for everything it has, and the people enslaved still to this day. Looking at cobalt mines, it's hell on earth. And so, we have so much of this stuff still going on, and we're wondering why we're all sick. I believe it starts from the top. I personally, no, I mean, you can cut this if you don't want a conspiratorial podcast, but I absolutely believe this is
I don't cut, so.
Good, yeah. I believe it's 100% intentional. The FDA is a criminal organization that approves things that make you sick, which feeds into Big Pharma, they have representatives that sit on every news station, every media outlet. And so we look at our food, where it comes from, who approves it, who makes money when we get sick from the food that has been approved. It's just this big circle jerk, and everyone is we're all just at the receiving end. Here in Canada, we're actually watching the health system decline like crazy. We are losing an entire industry of holistic healthcare in Canada because they've now come in and put waivers or levies and fines and fees on natural health supplements, taking away people's ability to choose herbs and plants and remedies as medicine, that we have to use pharmaceuticals. Companies now have to pay $500. Well, it's coming here in the next year or two, $500 per label to hold in their store, not just per brand, per item. And so imagine A company like you
Wow.
go into GNC or a health food store who has 500 different products, they have to pay 500 times 500 every year just to house them. And then there's import fees, then there's taxes and fees on all kinds of stuff. And anybody not in compliance can be charged up to $5 million per day found not in compliance. Canada is running health out of the country. You look at our health ministers, you look at Belgium and Germany and Canada and the United States, they're all obese, they're all sick, they all have mental health issues, and they're the health ministers claiming to be experts on mental health and wellness. And they're the ones who are driving health out of the country. And we're all going to be stuck taking pharmaceutical drugs as their saving grace to mask symptoms rather than getting to the root cause. It is a shocking, shocking display of lack of humanity, cruelty, and plain fucking evil as far as I'm concerned. It's wild to watch, man. It's crazy. We're all in trouble. We're all in deep, deep shit.
There are so many points that I'd agree. And this is when I get shadow banned off of YouTube again. I always give to the reference back, like back in the 70s, the FDA said sugar is completely safe and harmless. It doesn't cause obesity or diabetes. And that study was, as everyone knows at this point, was sponsored by Coca-Cola.
Yep.
And then you go back to the Obama era, where Michelle Obama was trying to go after the food in schools. And she really was trying to change nutrition for kids because whether it's feeding the cafeteria is borderline unsafe.
Oh,
and
very
then
unsafe.
The Pelican Group, which gives to, I think they said about 65% of schools use the Pelican Group as food distributors, sued her, went to court, and they said, we do give vegetables. We serve pizza, and tomato is a vegetable, which is not anymore, which is hysterical. But they potatoes, pizza's a vegetable, so therefore we serve fruits. And they lost, the Pelican Group won in court, and the court ruled they are serving enough vegetables because tomato is in pizza, therefore pizza is a vegetable. You want to talk about how corrupt everything is? Go look this up. I ain't making this up. This is all facts. And then what she had to do was stop going after food. And if ever remembers, it was all stay active, the 60-minute active thing she was pushing for years. That was because she was no longer allowed to go after what kids were consuming and instead was blaming lack of activity, which I think are both unnecessarily, obviously, but this is facts.
Yep.
Undistributed facts. And we can totally end there on a high note because I'm stressed. I'm not talking about my stress levels going on. My gut's going to be screwed up for the next week. Thanks, Josh. No.
Happy to help. Oh.
Well, I'm going to ask you your final two questions I ask everybody. The first one is, if you were to summarize this episode in 1 or 2 sentences, what would be your take-home message?
Wow. Okay. 1 or 2 sentences to summarize the entire episode. Your health is your responsibility. Your country, your government, your food producers don't give a shit about you. You have to educate yourself. You have to understand that your gut is everything. And unfortunately, there's so much in our world destroying our gut. We need to take control.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
That was a run-on sentence.
It's okay. And then the second question, how can people find you, get a hold of you, and learn more?
Yeah, my podcast, the best way to go, that's called Reversible, the Ultimate Gut Health Podcast, labeled Reverse Able. And we meet with some of the world's most famous doctors and specialists, Dr. William Lee, Dr. Stephen Gundry, Mindy Peltz, Lisa Bilyeu from Impact Theory, all kinds of amazing guests we've had on our show. And we just talk about, 1, how the world impacts our gut, and 2, how our gut impacts our lives and our world around us and what we can do to take control of that. It's an amazing, amazing show, and it's growing so rapidly, and it will be one of the best of the best. So get in now and
just
catch up on those.
Make sure it's number 2, not number 1.
Well, we'll be number 1. Yeah, we'll push Redefine Fitness down the list, and we'll take over. It'll be a battle.
I'm down. Battle, guys. Share this podcast so we can get ahead.
That's great.
Seriously,
we'll have a Sicilian battle in New York and just go old school 1920s.
I love it. Josh, thank you for coming on, and thank you guys for listening to this week's episode of Health Fitness Redefined. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button, share with a friend, and join us next week as we dive deeper into this ever-changing field. And remember, fitness is medicine. Until next time.